Hello.
Hi,
What is your name?
my name is Keturah.
Hi, Keturah. How's it going?
Pretty good.
Um, so what city or town do you live in?
Currently, I'm in San Leandro, though we're moving soon, But I'm from Oakland.
From Oakland.
Mm.
Did you grow up here in Oakland?
Yeah, I grew up here.
What year were you born?
1997.
1997. Did you go to high school out here?
I went to high school in San Francisco, actually. Well, I still stayed out here, but I just commuted.
And, so you commuted from Oakland all the way into San Francisco?
Yeah, every day.
Wow. What was that like? Did you do BART or?
Yeah, I did BART. It's okay. It's really crowded if you're comfortable being in tight-knit spaces with a lot of people begrudgingly going to work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was your school like an alternative, like art
Yeah, it was
based or?
alternative. It was called a technical art school.
Mm-hmm.
So it had electives like painting and drawing, but a lot of what the school focused on, it's like uses to promote itself is like the metalworking and woodshop and electronics and all of that type of stuff. I was really involved in all of that. That's what made it like a technical arts. It taught you technical skills working with your hands. Yeah.
What was that? What was that experience like for you?
It was interesting. I went to Oakland public school, and
Mhm.
all my life it was kind of like in Oakland public school settings. And so moving from that to this like extremely affluent private high school in San Francisco was like a culture shock for me.
Mm-hmm.
So it was hard to adjust in that sense. But I mean, the school had a lot of resources, and if you were in a place to receive those and in a place to like interact with the people and environment, I feel like you can get a lot out of it. I don't think I was in the space to do that. So it was a hard 4 years for me, but like whose high school experience isn't?
Yeah, for sure. Do you still keep in touch with people from high school?
Actually, one of my best friends now, who I'm moving in with in San Francisco, is one of the people I went to high school with.
Oh, cool.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think contributed to you having trouble? I guess like getting the most out of the experience.
At the time, just like home life was pretty tumultuous. It was like kind of a lot of things were changing and rearranging, and I had to move in with my aunt,
Mm-hmm.
which was also in Oakland. But it was just not a time full of stability for me in my personal life. And then on top of that, I didn't feel like a lot of things in the school environment really reflected my home or reflected things that I was rooted in. So it was hard to feel comfortable or feel, just likelihood with the people around you. And then it was just like a lot of different experiences that I wasn't used to. A lot of experiences that they had or had like the money to have that I've never experienced before.
Mm-hmm.
Like these were the type of kids that fly to the Olympics
Oh, wow.
for the summer. Like that's what they're doing with their summer break. And then my summer break, I'm just like staying in Oakland.
Yeah.
So it was interesting.
Did you make a lot of work or work that you felt really proud of while you were there?
Not in high school. I didn't really give myself to the process of anything institutional in high school. I didn't do a lot of my work. I think no, I didn't. I didn't do it.
It's tough at that age. I feel like I went to a traditional high school, but I really didn't start getting into art until I was in college.
Mm-hmm.
And even looking back, so I was an adult in college, but it's like it's hard to have any kind of, you don't even really know what your identity is.
Yeah.
You don't really know what you're doing.
And I've always been like eclectic and creative since a young age. I would draw things and people would be like, oh, that's really cool. But I'm not good at taking instruction, so I didn't like art classes or art courses, which made me really reluctant to like be in that type of environment, which is actually why I did a jewelry shop and took metal shop instead of taking drawing and painting, because I didn't want anyone to try to steer my creative process with that. Yeah.
Are you in college now?
I did one semester at Berkeley City College, but then I just didn't go back. So not at the moment, no.
Was it not a good experience?
No, I actually really like the community of Berkeley City College. It's like really diverse. It's a small school. It's all in one building. It has 5 floors, and it's kind of built in rings, so you can step out and look down and see all the 5 floors beneath you. And everybody knows each other, and there's like a lot of activities. And since Cal is so close, literally right up the street, a lot of the resources from Cal are shared with the students from BCC, and they actually share the same teachers who teach the same courses,
Oh,
depending
cool.
on what you take. It was a good experience. I don't know, life the past, like, since the beginning of high school till about a year ago, things were just hectic. And so part of the chaos also, like, had a big moment of eruption during my first, or the end of my first semester, and so in the process of dealing with that, I didn't go back. And though I enjoyed school, I didn't really understand, like, the point of it for myself.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I like learning and I like studying, and I do a lot of that on my own. If I know I'm not necessarily going for the degree, I don't really feel the need to complete obligations I don't feel are bettering me in any way, which is why, even though I did for one semester go to that school, I failed a lot of my classes. And one of which I failed was like a philosophy course on ethics. The teacher was horrible. He just asked us to like regurgitate information. It was like, write an essay on what is utilitarianism. And I'm like, I'm not going to do that. You're asking me to just take a definition and expand it to 3 pages when it could be easily surmised in a sentence. Mm-hmm. And I just don't feel like doing that type of work. So I took his readings, and then I went ahead of all of them and read all the readings, and I just never wrote any essay, which is why I failed his class, but not because I guess I didn't do the work, but I knew the subject entirely. I just hated the way he taught it.
Mm-hmm. What kind of work do you do?
Now I do creative directing for music videos, actually.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
What's a project that you've done that you felt like was really cool, like something that you feel proud of?
The last one we did, the one I feel like really proud of, was actually a personal project. It wasn't for a different artist. I just picked the song of a band I really like called Unknown Mortal Orchestra. I love their music. And so we decided to make just like basically like a fan-made or like spec film, and like inspired by their music, and I really enjoyed that one because it was just really fun. It was just me in like this costume and cool makeup playing this bass guitar and acting like I knew what I was doing.
That's really
And then
cool.
It's like we used some paint and poured it over this mask I made out of foil. It was interesting. I really liked it. So yeah. And then we have a new project coming up, which I'm excited for too. I'm excited to like push the stylistic aspect of it and see how that turns out.
That sounds really cool. Do you have any brothers or sisters?
I have an older brother who I think is 23. I know he's like a few years older than me. He's either 23 or 22.
Mm-hmm.
But I think 23 sounds right.
Let's see. Oh, what is your earliest childhood memory?
Catching frogs.
Oh, catching frogs. Where were you?
I was in Oklahoma.
Huh.
Mm-hmm.
Were you living out there at the time?
Yeah, actually I was born in Oklahoma and stayed there till I was 3 and then moved out here and was raised out here. The only thing I remember about Oklahoma though was catching frogs.
That sounds nice.
We had these like little net, what are they called? Like nets, just nets. Is that what they're called?
Like
butterfly nets or whatever.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, we used those. Tried to catch the frogs with them.
Have you been back to Oklahoma since?
No, my parents, both of them are from out here. My dad's from San Francisco, my mom's from San Diego, and they met at some college that direction, I think, and then got married and had my brother and then me before deciding to move back home.
Mm-hmm. Do you like the Bay Area?
Yeah, I love the Bay Area.
Do you see yourself staying here for quite some time?
I love the Bay Area, but I don't see myself staying here for that long. But I don't necessarily see myself settling anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
I want to go to a lot of different places and be in a lot of different places, and I don't want to necessarily feel tied down to one spot.
What cities seem interesting or attractive to you?
New York. I was in New York for a month recently. That was really fun.
What was it like?
At first, it was a really hard adjustment because the energy out there is so quick. It's
Mm-hmm.
so fast-paced. Everything's moving. And it's not even that people are mean out there. I feel like they just don't have time for you because everybody's in the middle of like their own hustle and their own grind and trying to live pretty much. And nobody really has time to amuse you or like be an empty space, which was interesting. I went out there to like network with music artists, young music artists in that scene because I do creative directing for music videos and stuff. And so it was just like seeing the shift in culture between the Bay Area and New York was really interesting. The Bay Area is a lot about how you feel and your intention and embodying those intentions, but I don't feel like it's product-based a lot of times. A lot of people feel a lot and create a lot, but there's not like completed projects put out by a lot of the people I know. even if they've been doing their work for like a considerable amount of years, people out there are much more about like the turnout rate, or what they would say like tangible productions of their work. And yeah, it's like all about what you're actually doing out there, and out here is more about the intention of what you're doing, which makes complete sense when you think about like the types of people in both spaces, and like the socially conscious California, especially in the Bay, you know. So intention and emotionality around what you do is really important, which isn't to say they don't have that in New York, but I feel like New York is more about the grind, the production, the fast pace, making moves, that type of environment.
Mm-hmm. That seems attractive to you.
Yes, because I definitely want to be working,
mm-hmm.
and like around people who are serious about working.
What's the first job you've ever had?
First job I ever had, like first consistent job, like when you're employed by somebody. I think it was at a bookstore. It was in Emeryville, actually. It was at Barnes & Noble.
What was that like?
It was interesting. I liked the idea of it because I like the idea of working in a bookstore, but it was strange because I started working right after I turned 18. Because I got interviewed and hired when I was 17, and I just like waited a month until I turned 18 to start. And everybody there was like a considerable amount older than me, but I don't know, like the workplace drama was just weird because I've never been into that drama, period, not even with people my age. Never in my life was I wrapped up in that. So to be in an atmosphere where it's like these are adults with drama that I'm supposed to like ascribe to or like give any emotional effort to, that was strange.
Yeah.
But I guess that's just people, you know?
What kind of drama?
I don't know, it's like literally cool kid, not cool kid drama.
Yeah.
That's crazy. I'm like, it's a bookstore. We're all adults here to get a paycheck. We're not like I'm not here to be your friend. I mean, of course I'm always down to offer friendship and like an open ear if people want to talk, but I'm definitely not trying to appease someone to the point where I get some label as being the cool person within a job environment. Like, I'm just here for a check.
Yeah.
It was okay. I like books, and I like being in the kids section because you could read to the kids sometimes. I thought that was really cute. I liked the events that they had. Day-to-day work was like okay, but when they had events like Lego Day where you got to play Legos with the kids, or had authors come in, I really liked the events, and I liked interacting with the community in a more direct way than just being like a sales floor type of person.
Mm-hmm. Did you have lots of authors that were coming in?
Yeah, I mean, a good amount. I wasn't always there for all of them, but I liked around the holiday time when we got all of our Christmas decorations and wrapping paper, because I love Christmas and I love decorations, and so whenever my job was like to stack up the Christmas cards, I get so excited for that.
Mm-hmm.
It was an okay job.
Was there a book that you learned about while you were there that you hadn't heard of that like was like really enlightening, or like a really interesting book that you didn't know about before?
Yeah, there were a few. I don't really remember the names of it. I had this coworker who was extremely interesting. He was my favorite. He was a philosophy teacher, and I really like philosophy. So all day we would just go back and forth talking about different philosophies and ideas, and he would always recommend me these book titles of things that are extremely interesting, like metaphysics and math, how that connects to philosophies of different cultures and different time periods and stuff like that. Those were extremely interesting, even if I only read like sections of them or had more just conversations with him about it. I liked those. And then I also read my first Murakami book while I was there. And since then, I can't get enough. I'm on like the 7th one now, and I intend just to buy the next Murakami book that comes out.
That's cool. What's a book by Murakami that you would recommend to someone that maybe hasn't read him before? Like, what's a good starting place?
That's hard because, I don't know. His books are extremely surreal, and you never really understand what part of it is literally what's happening in the story, or what's happening in someone's subconscious, or like an alternate universe, or if it's more to be taken like metaphorically as opposed to what's actually happening in the book. A lot of times they're like unanswered questions, so you won't know really what's real or not real at the end of it. And then he has some stories that are more like subdued and make more sense. Still have like that surreal aspect to them, but are definitely more straightforward, to where you can follow along exactly what's happening or what's real and who's in an alternate world or things like that. I really like Kafka on the Shore. That's the first one I read. It is really surreal. It does like push you into that other world. But if you want something that's more easy to follow along with and easy to connect to, I would say Norwegian Wood. It was really good. I liked the character development in that one a lot too. I felt like the story was straightforward. I really liked the characters in that. They made a lot of sense to me. And then Sputnik's Sweetheart is also one that I feel like is surreal, but it's not crazy, not too crazy to where you get lost. And those two are relatively short, especially Sputnik's Sweetheart. That one's pretty short.
What do you like to do in your spare time?
Paint. I do oil painting. I like surreal portraiture.
Oh, cool. Do you do like subjects? Do you have subjects that you like to paint? Like, do you have people sit for you?
I usually use photo reference just because I never have people who can actually just sit down for an hour. You'd be surprised. I've asked so many of my friends to like sit and model for me, and it just always ends up being a difficult thing. I would like to work with live models though. I've done figure drawing, like a figure drawing class here and there, but it's not something I've actually spent a whole lot of time working with.
Do you feel like the skills that you learned at your high school helped you to like put you in that frame of mind to want to start doing surreal portraits, or do you feel like it was, do you think you would have gone that direction had you not gone to that high school?
Yeah, definitely. I feel like I've always, I don't know, things like that extremely are really interesting to me, like nonsensical subject matter or like Dadaism, surrealism. Those types of images always have stood out to me. Yeah. I don't know exactly where I could put my finger on it when I look back on. I'm not sure exactly what influences that genre or style that I like so much, but I think I would have gone that direction either way.
Either way. Do you think about going to college for art?
I've thought about it. I've thought about what I was, not supposed to, but what I had planned to do was go for oil painting, like studio fine arts. But I think fine art spaces are kind of stagnant, and I wanted something that kind of necessitates you interacting with people who do art that's wildly different from yours, working towards a common goal. And of course you could still do that with like a fine arts degree or with painting, but I wanted something that made me have to do that. And I really like dealing with people. I like working in teams, and I feel like, I don't know, when you're just like a studio artist, sometimes it can get isolating, it can get stagnant. I don't really like when people feel, I don't know, more so than just appreciating the art for what it is. There's like this air of I gotta not touch it, stand this far away from the line, like things like that. I don't like that.
Like this like precious thing.
Yeah, exactly. So like you're revering it before you even try to understand it. It's like I'd rather have people just have an experience, which is why I really like creative directing. Because like I could still do oil painting for the set design, and then for like designing a set is basically building an installation, and then the artist who you're working with, whoever, is interacting with your live installation, which was inspired by their music, and then you have a photographer there taking it, and then there's like all these different like perspectives and all this different type of art blending together and mixing to create one common thing that everyone can feel proud of and everyone feels like reflects their individual experience. I think that is incredible. And I feel like if I were to do a gallery type of thing, it would have to be like heavily interactive or experiential, more so than just like, I did a good painting. I want it to be something that, I don't know, breaks that I'm a piece of art, I am the observer relationship that is often had.
What TV shows did you like when you were a kid?
When I was a kid, I really liked Codename Kids Next Door. That was one of my favorites.
What channel was it on?
Cartoon Network. Cartoon Network was one of my favorite channels.
What was the show about?
The show is basically that every kid under the age of 13 is a secret spy for a worldwide organization of kids. Kids Next Door. and they all have different like fractions, and instead of having a name, you just go by a number. And so the story centered around this one group, which was, I think, like, I forgot what sector they were called, but it was like number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5 were all the characters.
Mm-hmm.
And they all had like really interesting gadgets as weapons, things that would like toss teddy bears, and they would fight like evil adults, basically like the lunch lady that made them eat broccoli or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And then their arch nemesis were the delightful children from down the lane, which are just like these goody two-shoe kids that all dressed the same and spoke with a unified voice, which is really funny. And they all stood next to each other the whole time. But that was like their arch nemesis was the delightful children from down the lane. I don't know, I love that show. It was so cool.
That's cool. Do you like movies?
I love movies.
What's a movie that you've seen recently that you really liked, that you responded to?
I just saw Gook. It's the name is like of the Korean slur, or slur for Southeast Asians. But it's the whole movie, it's shot in black and white. Stylistically, I think that's incredible, because you never see modern films shot in black and white. And the whole thing is about these two brothers who are Korean shop owners, and this little black girl who lives close by, who oftentimes like will skip school and frequent the shop and help out around there. And she's known them since she was a baby, and her family has known the shop owners since like for a while now. And so the whole thing is taking place during the Rodney King riots. And so in the backdrop of the whole film, there's TVs on and radios on where you hear them talking about the the conflict happening and more towards downtown LA. And so it's like the characters are living on the outskirts of this, but then there's like, I don't know, it's just super interesting and like a way of exploring race relations.
Mm-hmm.
And then the whole thing being shot in black and white is also interesting too, because at the time, that was, like, culturally, that was a time of like bright, popping type of colors.
Mm-hmm.
You know, color TVs were out at the time of the Rodney King riots. So to me, it made me think more about like, why was it in black and white? And my theory is that it was all shot in black and white because it was more to allude to the lines that people had to draw for themselves in strenuous time periods to simplify an unstable environment.
Huh.
I thought the movie was also, like, the writing was really beautiful. The ending was a little harsh, but it hits ya. It hits ya.
Do you know who made it?
No, he's a Korean director, I believe, but I don't know his name. I need to get it because I want to see if he's made any other films.
Yeah, that sounds really good. Where'd you see it at?
Well, I saw the trailer for it in a small theater in Berkeley, but I don't think it's playing there anymore, so I just watched it at home.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to see it in theaters. I really wanted to see it in theaters because that's a movie I would have wanted to give my money to.
What's something that you're most proud of so far?
Oh, I don't think I'm too proud of anything. I don't feel like I allow myself to feel pride.
How come?
Because like I don't feel like anything I've ever done is good enough. There's like pride immediately after I've done it, and then literally a day later I'll be completely over it, not want to look at it, know I can do better.
Kind of like forget about it.
Yeah, it's like it's in the past. We need to be looking about expansion, bettering ourselves.
What about finishing high school?
Yeah, I'm not proud of that. This kind of happened. I feel like it had to happen. Honestly, I skipped so much school towards the last year. I don't think I should have graduated. But then again, it was like a really affluent school, and to have a student not finish, I feel like would have reflected really poorly on them. Which might have been the reason that they passed me. But then I was also voted the salutatorian of the class, which was funny.
Huh.
Because I never showed up. And my friends who were around were like, how did you get voted? Like, you don't even, it's almost as if you don't go here. And I would laugh. And I'm like, yeah, I know. I don't know how I had to, like, write this speech.
What was your speech about?
I don't even remember, honestly. I was just known for being, like, artistic and, like, articulate. And so, I don't know. I think maybe that's the reason I got voted.
If you could go back, if you were asked to go back to speak to your old high school, do you have certain topics or certain things that you would want to tell those graduating students?
Oh, no. No. I want nothing to do with the environment. I have no advice, you know? I have no advice. I feel like even while I was there, my mind was so geared towards just like not conventional things, and afterward it's still very much so like resistant towards conventionality, like school systems. I'm like, yeah, that's what you want. Like, if you want to be a doctor, by all means, please go to school before operating on anybody, because there's like a really set body of knowledge that you should know. But outside of that, I'm like, it oftentimes feels like it's designed to waste your money unless you know exactly what you're going there to get, have like a very clear idea of what it is you want for yourself. In which case, school systems or systems in general can really benefit you if you know why you're there. But a lot of times people don't. A lot of times it's just more of a pipeline situation. You're taught to go to school, you're used to those environments, you're used to people telling you what to do instead of having to decide for yourself what you want. And so I don't feel like any speech I would give would be for everybody. I feel like it would confuse most people who don't expand outside of conventional norms, and for like the few people who do, who might feel a little bit of validation from what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
But in general, I don't feel like I would help support the mindset most kids in that school have around education or just their futures in general. I would probably say something like, safety is an illusion, schools are a lie, institutions are horrible, know what you want or else don't involve yourself in it. But who really knows what they want?
Especially at that age.
Right? So I don't think I'd really help.
Do you feel like in some ways school is maybe they're almost like to teach people how to stand in line?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, at the foundation of it, that's what it was for. And then it was for to educate, like the elite few were meant to actually have it for the sake of like upward mobility. But it wasn't really designed with the intention of just letting your mind expand. It's more like letting your mind be shaped into a block that can fit into the rest of the blocks of society, which I don't think is inherently bad. I don't think most things are inherently bad or good. I don't even ascribe to the idea of bad and good as it's generally taught. But I don't think it's for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like for other people who don't fit in well with that method or that mindset, it's like terribly harmful.
Sometimes these ideas, I guess I just ask this because I think that I felt in many ways the way that you do. But as I'm starting to get older, I'm starting to see it almost more from like a parent perspective. Mm-hmm. So I feel like I understand what you're saying, but another side of me feels like if I was your parent, I would be very concerned.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
Do you feel like your parents are concerned, or do you feel like they encourage you to continue in this, just continue thinking in a free-spirited fashion?
I don't feel like my parents are that concerned, because for the first portion of my life, I was like really good at school. I wasn't necessarily super passionate about it, but all through middle school was a breeze. Elementary school was a breeze. It wasn't anything I took a really critical eye towards or was resistant about at all until high school. Until basically I wasn't in a position to do well in high school anymore, and I had to rationalize to myself why it didn't matter. And so I feel like at first I started thinking like that to serve myself. But then in general, I started to see it just kind of like as that sort of thing. I think it's important in the sense of basic learning, especially for kids, in order to like keep their brains stimulated and teach them like basic things about history. But then, I don't know, it gets to a certain point where it's like, how good is this for people? How beneficial is it really to be going through like these types of lessons, or to get as stressed out about these types of lessons as a lot of kids do? I know a lot of sense of self-worth hinges on like a grade for facts that I don't remember half of the things I learned in school.
Yeah,
but like
how many adults remember much of anything that they learned in high
school? So it gets to a certain point where it's like, how much of it really matters and how much of it is just rhetoric. You're just talking at people, you're just making them repeat things to you, but you're not, I don't know. It also depends on the school. Schooling varies in a lot of different places and communities, and the school definitely matters, but I don't know, as a system as a whole, I see how it's useful, but I don't think it's as good as it could be. And I think it went from something made to like teach people how to stay in line, then to something for the elite, then to something that's like said to be for like expansion, but then is very limiting. Especially grades. I think I just don't like grades. I think grades is the part that really gets me. I like that you get exposed to a lot of different things, different ideas, books, subjects, and things like that. But then when it's like, how much of it are you learning for you and how much of it are you learning to appease an authority? I think that's the part that starts to get to me personally of my like problem with school. It's not just the fact that, I don't know, you sit there, you learn math that you won't learn later. It's like obviously you're building problems, like problem solving skills, and just like allowing, you're just becoming more receptive to different information, which I think is important. But at the end of the day, it's like if you're only being receptive of that information for somebody else's sake or for how you're going to be perceived in someone else's eyes, then it's like I don't feel like that's towards your betterment. And that's what I feel like grades do a lot. I think the standardization of schooling is the problem.
Okay, so that took us halfway. Do you need a minute? Do you want a glass
No,
of
we
water?
can
You
just
good?
keep going
Straight
like.
through. Okay, so then for the next part, we do 3 minutes and no talking.
Mhm.
Okay. Okay, that's 3 minutes. What's something that you would like to see or do before you die?
It used to be see snow up until a year ago.
See snow.
Yeah, but then I saw it a year ago.
Where did you see it at?
Tahoe.
Tahoe's really beautiful, huh?
Yeah, I also went skiing for the first time, all in the same day.
Wow.
It was interesting.
Was that your first time in Tahoe?
Mm-hmm.
What'd you think?
It was beautiful. The snow had already begun to melt, but we were at one of the ski resorts more up in the mountains and stuff. So it was out there.
What was skiing like?
It was interesting. At first, it was horrible because I feel like it makes no sense to have two things on two separate feet that just can slide any direction. And then if you fall, your feet get tangled but separately. Skateboarding and snowboarding makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
You got one thing, both feet planted on one thing, and it's kind of just like shift your weight. But skiing doesn't make sense because it's like, why would you want your feet to be separate on something going that far and that fast?
Mm-hmm.
That was wild. I got the hang of it, and then I was doing all right. When I was able to like start passing the children I saw doing it pretty well, I felt proud of myself. There's this one 5-year-old in particular that when I was able to pass them going down this little hill that we just kept going up and down, I knew I had progressed a good amount. And then there were some people out there snowboarding in like shorts and no shirt.
Oh, wow.
That was wild. I was like, are you not cold? I was so layered. And there was just this one hill. That was crazy. It was so steep, and we were trying to get back to the bottom of the mountain instead of taking like the lift down because my friends were like, oh, we should just ski down to the bottom. I can't ski. And so going down this hill, instead of skiing, I would intentionally fall every 10 feet as I gained momentum so I could stop myself from moving. And then I'd get up slowly, and then I'd allow myself to go, and I'd pick up momentum, and I'd just fall. And I did that all the way down this really steep hill simply so I didn't have to actually go as fast as I would have if I stayed upright. At one point, I was just allowing myself to slide slowly while I dug the, what are those little stabby things called?
Oh, yeah.
I just dug it into the snow behind me, so it, like, drug, and I just used it to, like, have friction so I could just slowly slide on my butt down the mountain. It worked out. Eventually, I got to the bottom and everything was fine.
Did you have any feelings of, like, exhilaration? Like, this is, like, so awesome.
It was cool, but I kept looking at the snowboarders and being like, that's what I want to do. That makes so much more sense. You fall, and you just kind of have to, like, lean yourself back up, and then you're good. You just keep on sliding down, not go find your ski, because I'd have one ski come off, and then I have one foot, and then one ski, and I just look a mess. I had nice people, like, scoot my, ski towards me on their way down because they saw how much I was struggling.
So now that you've seen snow, do you have something else that you would like to see or do?
Mm-hmm. I mean, I'd like to travel outside of the country.
Mm-hmm. Do you have a country specific?
I want to go to Ghana.
Ghana.
Or Cuba.
Yeah, Cuba seems really interesting, huh? It seems like now seems like the time to go because
Exactly.
I feel like things are really going to start changing. That'd be cool. Do you know anyone who's ever been to Ghana or Cuba?
My aunt's from Ghana, and so I really want to go back with her. I feel like every year we've been saying, next November, we're going to spend Thanksgiving in Ghana. We never do. But I'd like for that to become a real thing.
What does she say about Ghana, like what it's like?
She loves it. Says it's really beautiful. And she has a lot of family out there. I just want to travel to a lot of different cities and countries in Africa. I also just feel like there's so many misconceptions behind what Africa is because it becomes just like, Africa. What does it mean? Wild animals. Like no civilization. I was like, wow. But the cities look so beautiful. Mm-hmm. So beautiful. And so I want to experience that.
Were you raised religious?
I was raised Christian. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Do you still, do you feel like that influenced you in any way? Do you feel like you think about things in a different way based on the religion that you were raised with, or not really?
Definitely. I went through a period of being like really like spiteful towards religion. Mm-hmm. Not because I was like raised abused in Christianity or anything, but
systems.
Systems. And then people not really accepting responsibility for themselves. I feel like religion, it really, I don't know, in general, it seems like a diversion of power, a division of your personal power. It's like when things go good or bad, it then becomes God's responsibility, God's fault, you know? And so I feel a lot of times it could be used as like, obviously a coping mechanism, but at the same time, when it's like used to excuse just a lot of horrible, horrible things, or to be passive in the midst of things that you could otherwise like do better about, or not to be as self-reflective, or like, you know, it's a lot of things that you're just putting on the idea of a higher figure that you can deal with for yourself and address for yourself, which I feel like, I don't know, not everybody is equipped to do. So I understand the place of religion. Same way I understand the place of school, but I don't find it personally useful, no, for myself. Though I do think the parts of it that taught like compassion and then like a unified people, that type of idea, I liked that. But the idea of hell it still makes no sense to me. Like it's wild. It's like, so God created all of this stuff, and he loves people, but then creates hell to put them in forever, knowing that some people won't choose him. That doesn't sound like love to me. If I loved somebody and I knew they wouldn't love me back, I wouldn't make the alternative, like, well, then you're suffer forever. And then that people just accept that and just accept it. It's like, that's crazy. That's crazy. I don't feel like there's any human being alive who's done something so bad that they should suffer for eternity. Because life is finite. Everything has a time period. Why would your suffering not?
What do you think happens when you die?
To be honest, I'm not totally sure, but I like the idea of reincarnation. I don't think it, just like how a lot of people say, it just all goes black, because then that like implies that your consciousness is just like thrown into a void. And I don't think your ego is preserved like that to the point where it can be perceptive of just a blackness. And so I don't think it's like you aware of your individual self in a nothingness space. I feel like if it is nothingness, then it just becomes nothingness. You're not perceiving nothingness. You know, I feel like that's a hard concept when people are like, it just goes black. It's not like their lights in a room just turn off.
Are you familiar with the 7 deadly sins?
Yeah.
Which one do you think is the most damaging to society?
What are they, like greed, gluttony, lust, envy, pride,
Sloth.
and sloth?
Pride,
Oh.
And wrath.
Oh, wrath. Hey. I think either pride or gluttony would be the most detrimental.
How come?
I think pride, because it gives us this false notion that like this world is ours or for us, and not that we live in like partnership with this world or that we coexist with this world, but there's like this narrative that it belongs to us, you know? And it's like, if something belongs to you, then essentially you can do whatever you want with it. You know, and even if you suffer the consequences of that, it's yours to feel, it's yours to do that too. And I feel like it gives us a really unhealthy relationship with our world, and one where we allow a lot of horrible, horrible things to happen because God created Earth for man or something like that. Like that idea to me is wild. And it's really irreverent of just other things, other pieces of existence. And then when you get down into classifications of people, then it allows you to like believe not just God created world for man, but God created this world for this specific type of man. And like, you know, it's like, where do you stop narrowing the line to feed
this like entitlement?
This idea of entitlement. That's wild.
That's a very interesting idea. So do you see in a way like almost like westward expansion, like
horrible.
when people came in and like massacred buffalo
I
and
think
stuff, that's pride.
Western expansion, yeah, definitely. I think Western expansion is the worst thing to have ever happened in this world. And I don't, a lot of people are like, well, other civilizations were savages before. And I'm not saying that other places didn't have, like, horrible leaders or horrible monarchs who massacred their people. I'm not saying that everywhere in the world was a paradise before, like, a white man stepped foot on it. All I'm saying is that now we've been unified on the same, like, systematic shit, to where it's like you can't really step outside of that systematic shit. Like, that to me is horrible. Not like, oh, my country has its problems and your country has its problems, but to all be unified under one horribly, like, insidious and, like, parasitic way of thinking and living, that's horrible.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's, like, the worst thing to have ever happened.
Were you raised with would you say that you were raised with a certain political outlook, or do you feel like your folks did not really talk about politics in the home?
I mean, working class, like, black family, democratic. And I feel like that's kind of just, it was like a part of the atmosphere. Like, subconsciously you understood.
Mm-hmm.
Democrat, like, whatever that means. Personally, I am skeptical of all government. But, Democrat, good. Working class, good. That type of thing. But I feel like both Democrat and Republican is just two different sides of the same coin.
Mm-hmm. Do you feel that your parents' views have influenced your own worldview?
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, at what point can it not? Whether or not, like, you oppose your parents' views or ascribe to it, in either way, it's going to influence you.
Mm-hmm. Do you feel that the world is in a generally good place or a generally bad place?
I think it's in a generally bad place, but maybe I'm just a pessimist. But then, I don't like the idea that there was ever a good old days.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like it's lazy. It's not really reflecting on just, like, human progression in general. I feel like days were different, but it's not like we once had it. Nobody. Well, I mean, there are probably some still small indigenous communities who are living in harmony with the land and are happy. And they got it. But I feel like when you come to Western, like, civilizations and Western societies, it's like, we've never had it. There's never been a good old days. Milkshakes and a checkered diner doesn't make it utopia. You know what I mean? When people are like, the 50s. But I feel like we tell ourselves that a lot of times because it's easier to think that we once had the right answer and we just strayed from it. So all we have to do is backpedal. It's much harder to conceptualize that we never had the answer. And so you're still looking for something that has never been modeled for you, and you have to create that for yourself. I feel like that's asking much more than just, we had it once, we just gotta get back there.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I don't like the whole, like, make America great again. Like, beyond just the fact that it's, like, fucking riddled with, like, racist undertones and whatnot. I just feel like it's lazy.
Mm-hmm.
It's incredibly lazy. And I don't feel like the world's in a good place. No. Because part of the thing, the whole unified under the same shit. And I don't like capitalism, but I don't necessarily have an answer for what could be different or a different system. I don't have an idea of a different system. I feel like a lot of the reasons people don't approach the conversation of, like, capitalism and shit is because it always ends up at, like, well, what are you going to do about it? This is what it is. What are you going to do about it? And as much as I, like, understand that sentiment, at the same time, like, we can't do anything about it without addressing that it's a problem. And if every time someone begins to speak about the issue or, like, brainstorm or try to open a dialogue about the issue, it's shot down with, well, what are you going to do about it? Like, it stops progress in its tracks. Because then you're just making everyone complacent. But no, I don't feel like the world's in a good place. Pollution's horrible. I don't know. Colonialism has kind of fucked up a lot of things. There's internal conflicts in other countries caused by the West. Everything's ran by money and corporations. I don't think it's the best, no.
What would you like people to know about you?
I don't know. I used to be really obsessed with the idea of people remembering me and me wanting to have some sort of control on that memory or perception, but I don't feel like I have that anymore. And I don't necessarily want anybody to know anything about me that they don't want to know or don't want to experience or don't want to understand. Like, I don't have any personal desire for people just to know something about me that I feel like is important to my identity.
What's an example of a person that you know, or maybe you don't know them personally, but you know of them, that you feel like is a good person, like someone that you could model yourself after?
I think that's interesting because I don't really ascribe to commonplace views of good or bad. I feel like it really depends on the scope you're looking at. So it's hard for me to be like, that's a good person. I generally feel like people are good, but...
It could also be like a relative or...
I don't know, I feel like anybody who's passionate about something, I feel like I try to model myself after. Anybody who allows themselves to care deeply about something. Which is a lot of people.
Do you think about ever having kids?
Yeah, but I don't want to have them in America. But then it's like, well, then where? Because every place has its problems, but it doesn't have to be these problems. And I don't know. Because it's, like, funny, because every time I imagine myself having kids, I can never imagine, like, a partner or, like, the other parent. I just see the kid, and I'm like, well, I clearly am not wanting to choose single parenting for myself. But in my imagination, there just is nobody else but me and the imaginary child, so I don't know. It'd be interesting, but it's definitely not something I feel like I'm aiming for at all. Maybe one day. Probably. Most likely one day I will feel that. But I don't... It's not like I don't want a child. But I also am not actively, like, wanting that responsibility in my life.
Are you in a relationship?
I am.
What's your partner like?
She's very caring about a lot of things, which is interesting because I tend to, like, really perceptive of a lot of things, but I don't really get emotionally wrapped up in other people's experiences a lot of time, though I'm understanding of them. I feel like she gets emotionally wrapped up in other people's experience, like righteous indignation. Feels that a lot. People get angry about a lot and it's not like her anger's wrong, but I feel like I tend to take a much more, like, observative position to things as opposed to, like, feeling type of thing. And she studies science. I do art. I really don't understand science at all. She does really good poetry, which I think is interesting because, like, in slam poetry culture, there really is, like, this cadence, this really cliche, like, ba ba ba, and poetry, I am the slam poet. You know, that's horrible. I think it's horrible. But it's interesting because she doesn't write or read her work like that.
What's her work like?
It's kind of like somebody reading a story to you almost, and then the scene becomes more vivid, and then different shapes kind of, like, fill up the space as they continue to read. But a lot of her work isn't like, and you have to understand this about me because what I'm saying is, like, important. Like, there's not a sense of self-importance to her work. A lot of it has to do with, like, her telling the story of her own life or retelling the stories that have been told to her. And it's just interesting. I like it. I think it's really refreshing, especially after being involved in slam culture for a bit and having so much of that cliche cadence and performance. Yeah. I think she writes beautifully. I think the imagery is really good.
Mm-hmm. Did you have a favorite band or musician when you were in high school?
When I was in high school, I listened to a lot of different things. I don't think I had one favorite. Because my music taste changes like every week. I'll listen to one thing a lot 1 week and then a different thing a lot the next week. I really liked the band Modest Mouse, though.
Mm-hmm.
They're really good. I like them. I still really like them. I don't know if they would be my favorite, but I still really like them.
When you were in high school and you didn't, if you didn't go to high school, it seems like it would be hard to go to high school if you were in a place like San Francisco because there's just like so much to do if you don't go to school. Did you feel like it was like that for you?
Kind of, but at the same time, like, I feel like the world's kind of limited to you if you're a high schooler, not in high school. I feel like I took high school like a lot of other people do, where it's like, you gotta get through it, and you get your diploma and get out.
Mm-hmm.
So, I thought about it, but then at the same time, I feel like, what would I have done? Like, some labor-intensive job. I don't know. Still been living at home. Like, I feel like there wasn't really that great of an alternative. Unless somebody wanted to take me under their wing as, like, their apprentice at an art shop. That would have been great. That would be the perfect alternate reality. But, no.
I've thought about that, too. I was actually just thinking about that. Did you ever do summer school?
Academic summer school or, like, art summers? No, I've never did academic summer school. Thank God.
There was a while where, there was a summer or two where I had to do summer school. And what I thought was so interesting, kind of back to school, was I felt like I learned so much more. Like, I remember I had to do a biology class because I failed it during the regular year, and then I had to do it in summer school to redo it. And it was like, I feel like I understood it. It was like so much more clear. And it was like, oh, well, maybe it's because class sizes are way smaller and this is kind of all you have to do is like look at this biology stuff. And I don't know. So sometimes I kind of wonder, I guess kind of back to like what the point of high school is actually, because it doesn't seem like the circumstance that you're in is really there for you to learn much.
Yeah, exactly.
What's our time like?
2 minutes. 2 minutes, 10 seconds.
Okay. I think I'm out of questions. So we can just kind of talk about whatever. Are you doing anything for the holidays?
Oh, no, just normal family, whatnots, get-togethers and dinners and stuff. And then my girlfriend will be flying back from school. She goes to college on the East Coast, but she's from out here.
Oh, okay. Is that hard, the long distance?
Yeah. But I flew out to see her last month. Then she'll be flying out in like a week. Then I'll be flying back out like a month after that.
What city does she live in?
Northampton.
In Massachusetts?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Because she goes to Smiths.
Oh, okay. There are a couple of schools out there. Amherst is nearby?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I really goes there.
What's it like out there?
Small town. When I went, it was really cold, but it was cute. Yeah, it's a small town, really quiet. Not a lot of activity like there is out here with events and like places that are fun to hang out. I mean, they have like a few bars. Not really, it has like a lot less of a flair to it.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a quaint place.
Yeah. Could you see yourself living out there?
Absolutely not. There's no way. I thought about it. Me and her actually laughed about it together. And she was like, oh, what if you just... I was like, I will never. I'm so sorry. Especially with me being a creative director for music videos. It's like, who? Where? Where is my market out here? You need to have people who, like, attend music shows and who are, like, pursuing a music career. But nobody's pursuing a music career in this environment.
And then it's still pretty far.
Yeah.
Isn't it like 6-7 hours from Boston?
Yeah, exactly.
So
I have to take a
really
bus. I have to take
there.
a 5-hour bus ride from Boston to Northampton.
Yeah, I don't think that would be good for you.
There's no way. There's no way. I wish I want to go back while it's still snowing though, so I can see the snow.
Will you click the big button?
Is it?
Yeah. Okay, so the final question is, what would you like to tell future Americans?
I wonder how long there will be future Americans. Man, I don't know. Your country's founded on fear. Try not to be fearful, move forward with love, and like, not necessarily a sense of safety, because safety is a lie, but you don't have to be afraid just because you're not, indulging in this idea of the greatest country protecting you or something like that. I don't know. I have no idea. I feel like America's almost at a loss. But yes, your country's founded on fear. Try not to be so fearful, and maybe you can like facilitate a healthier environment for everybody involved.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much.
No problem. This is your